about why parking cause neighborhood fights. Now, this is a subject that I don't know, it's kind of touchy for me. I don't know, it might be touchy for other people too, but I would say that being living in New York, I've seen people get into fights. I've heard stories about people. Hello. I heard people get hurt over it and even killed over parking. And a lot of times it happens during holiday times when people are trying to get somewhere, they're in a rush or something happened, something along the lines of that, right? Um, so we wanted to just touch on that and see if there's ways that we can get around not fighting over parking. Because life is too short. We don't want to fight over parking, right? There's more to life than parking. Right? So, so tonight, like I said, we're talking about parking wars and what's legal, what's rude, and how to protect your peace when parking is busy in your neighborhood. So I want to start with driveways, right? A lot of times people, I can speak for New York, that a lot of times people think that in New York City, you can park in front of people's driveways and it's legal and they don't have any repercussion. There's nothing that the homeowner can do if you are blocking their driveway. And I've seen people literally park in front of someone's driveway for 24 hours, like park overnight. And sometimes they don't even live in the neighborhood, right? And they're parked in front of someone's driveway. And I know that person is irritated that they're parking in front of their driveway. So I just wanted to just touch on that because, I had to tell a story that my mother, when she owned her home in Brooklyn, people didn't think that she had that parking in front of her driveway was illegal and that they can do it and there was nothing she could do about it. And every time she came across that problem, she always pulled out her curb cut permit to show them that, yes, I do have a permit and no, you cannot park here. So I wanted to just talk about what a curb cut is. All right, so a lot of people get confused about it. So a curb cut is the lowest section of the sidewalk and curb that allows a vehicle to enter or exit a property. In New York City, curb cuts must be approved by the city through the Department of Buildings, sometimes coordinated with DOT. A curb cut permit does not give someone ownership of the street or curb space. It protects access, meaning vehicles must be able to get in and out safely. So that's something to be mindful of. So you don't know. Some homeowners, they illegally create a driveway without actually getting a permit. Like they'll kind of like just create that curb cut to make it easier for them to get in and out of their space. But that doesn't mean they actually legally are allowed to have that curb cut there. So, because they have not filed a permit with Department of Buildings. So that's something to think about. But still in all, that being said, if a person does have, you don't know if they have or they don't have it, right? And I know that a person can actually have your car towed. So if you are parking in front of a person's driveway, you don't know if they have a curb cut permit. So you are likely taking a chance of getting your car towed and ticketed. And you don't want to do that, right? So let's be mindful of that. And then on top of it, let's just be respectful. I mean, how would you feel if you had a driveway and someone's blocking your driveway all night? And then you want to, even if you want to leave your home and you want to exit it, you can't exit it. You don't know who to reach out to. You don't know where the person is located at, right? And it could just be so irritating and people can get so upset about these things and it's very understandable. So just a common level of respect, right? For each other. So then also I wanted to talk about is public is Title 34, which is the driver's rule. So even if, so just say for example, even if the homeowner does not have a curb cut permit, still there is a traffic rule in place, right? So they don't necessarily have to have a permit, but the Title 34 of the New York City Code still applies. So it governs how drivers use public streets. So Section 408 covers parking and standing, and it clearly states that you cannot park in front of a driveway. That rule applies whether the driveway isn't used every day, once a week, or looks empty, because the rule is about access, not usage. So you want to be mindful of that as well. So yes, right, they have to have a permit, a curb cut permit, but still at the same time, there's a traffic rule that is in place. And that traffic rule is outside of just someone's having a curb cut permit, but also you as a driver and how you are supposed to behave using public space, right? So in that public space doesn't necessarily have to be a homeowner. It can actually be a business that has a driveway with a curb cut permit, or a driveway period that if you're blocking someone from gaining access in and out of that space, you can actually get ticketed and you can probably get towed. So be mindful of that, right? And then also, I think one of the biggest issues is public curb space. So what is public curb space? I'm using all these terminologies that we just, the streets, right? Like, well, I'm trying to find somewhere to park my vehicle. I always say, oh, I'm looking for a park, right? We're like, what is a park? But yeah, so public space is usually first come, first serve, where parking is allowed. So this is the street, pretty much, right? It's the street that we normally New York drivers who don't have a parking garage where they can park their vehicle, or don't have a driveway that they can store their vehicle, are parking their vehicles on the street. So no one legally owns public curb space, even if it's directly in front of their home or businesses, but still, that doesn't mean that you want to block access in and out of that space. If it's in front of someone's home, then that's different. If it's in front of their home and it's not a driveway there, of course you can, in New York, you can park in front of somebody's home if there's no driveway there. But if there's a driveway there, like I said, we don't know if they have a curb cut permit, and even if they don't, you still don't want to block access in and out of somebody's driveway. So the question I wanted to answer, can you block a whole public curb space? And the answer is no, you cannot block curb and public space. I think a lot of times people think that they own the public space when they actually don't. Like, you cannot hold public space with cones or trash cans and say, I'm gonna hold a spot for you. And no, you can't do that because you don't own the space, right? So we definitely know that's not the way to do that, right? So and that's something that needs to be spoke about, because I think a lot of times people actually get into issues with people because of that, because of them thinking that they can hold a space for someone, or they can block the space. You are not allowed to block the space. So one way you want to do is be courteous of the people who are, be respectful when you're sharing that space. You don't own that space, and we have to remember that. So, and I think a lot of times that's how we get into these conflicts with each other, because we don't seem to have just common courtesy for each other. So, so just say, one of the things you want to be mindful is be considerate of how your parking impacts each other. So I have my space here. Hold on. I had it getting all my stuff like confused here. Okay. Right. So the first thing I was saying is good curb space. Respect the curb space. Respect the public curb space is in a way that we have to share it, right? It's not just for you. We don't own the public space. So sometimes people think that they can hold a space for someone. They think that they can block the space for someone. They could block it with all type of, items. But no, you don't own that, right? So that means if you have garbage cans, recycling bins, cones, buckets, crates, chairs. I've seen people do all type of things, standing in front of the spot. Like I've seen people jump out of a vehicle to to stand in front of the parking space so the other person could come around and get the space. And that alone could cause problem. But we have to remember that public curb space is first come, first serve. Is not reservable. You don't reserve that space. We all pay our taxes. We are all entitled to that space. Right? Okay. And then also I just wanted to also say, like, how do we avoid parking curb conflict with each other? How do we avoid getting in fights with each other? How do we go about doing that? Because a lot of times I think we are so quick to want to argue and fight with each other and then not realize that sometimes we're probably in the wrong. We probably did not do the right thing or handle it in the most appropriate way. So I just want to say the one thing you want to do is just be considerate. Be considerate of how our parking affects other people, right? And if you see someone about to take the space, is it right to take the space knowing that they are about to park in that vehicle? Do you just kind of jump in front of them when you see them backing up in front of a space? That could cause issues right then and there, right? But we just have to remember that we don't own this space. We don't own the New York public streets. So, and then also be mindful, like if you're trying to, sometimes we try to take up two spaces and not be mindful of the other person trying to park their vehicle. You want to be mindful of that too. Like try to make sure that you leave enough space for a person to park their vehicle. And then sometimes we tend to double park as well. And then we're not mindful of the people who need to get in and out of those spaces. So that's the things we want to think about. And choose peace over parking spots. So parking conflicts escalates very fast, especially in New York City. I've seen it, and it's probably all over the world, all over the country. Like we've dealt with that. If a situation feels tense, it's often better to choose another legal spout than to engage. This means do not argue over the space. Do not touch someone else's car or property. Like don't try to scratch up the car or tear it up. No, we're not going to do that. Right? Don't escalate with notes or confrontation. It's not worth it. It really isn't worth it. And that's how we get into these parking wars. This is how we get into fighting each other. And we don't want to do that. We don't want people to lose their lives over parking spaces. So just to kind of go back over parking, when you're parking in front of someone's driveway, be mindful that that person who has that driveway in New York City, a lot of times we think that people who have driveways, that they don't have curb cut permits or permits that allows them to prevent you from parking in front of their space. And sometimes they do. And if they do, your car can be towed and it can be ticketed. So be mindful of that. And then also just speak to your neighbor. If you need to park your vehicle for a few minutes, ring their bell. Ask them, is it okay if I park my vehicle in front of your parking space? Maybe you should even see if they offering their space to be rented out. You never know. But that being said, be mindful. And if you're in a neighborhood that you've never been in before and you're visiting somebody and you're parking in front of someone's driveway, try not to stay there too long. Like, be respectful of other people's space. That's what I would say. And then also, even if a owner of a home does not have a a curb cut permit or permit to actually for that driveway, if you prevent someone coming in and out of their space, you can still get hit with the traffic rule violation by blocking a parking space, blocking someone from coming in and out of that space. So be mindful of that. Please don't think that you have the right, because a lot of times that's where a lot of arguments come into place. That's when a lot of people get into fights over spaces because they think they have rights and they don't. And then also public spaces. We don't own New York City public space. We don't. It's not reservable. So even if you put your chair there, if you put garbage cans there, if you put cones there, you don't have the right to hold that space. And somebody has a right to remove that and park their vehicle because you don't have the right to block that. So just wanted to make that very clear, because a lot of times we think that we do own the street and we don't. So we have to be able to realize that we have to work with each other in this space, right? We have to be mindful of all of what we're trying to do. All of us are trying to find space, and the reason why we have those issues because we're limited. The space is limited, especially when it's holiday time. People are rushing. Is rush hour time. People trying to get to work. There could be numerous reasons why there's a problem with parking, and it's just limited space. Let's just be real, limited space, and people have limited time. And they can't find any parking. So that being said, we are at Plenty is about being proactive, not reactive, right? So these are some of the tips that you can do, right? Plan ahead, right? And that's easily said than done, right? Like, how do you plan ahead? Like, you coming home and you can't find some way to park. How do you plan ahead? But if you know you're going out of town, or you know you're going to an area and you know that the parking might not be available, maybe you should leave a little bit earlier, so you won't be rushing to get to your destination. So plan ahead. Plan to see. Actually, you can Google the area you're going to. It can let you know. Google Maps even lets you know if there's plenty of parking over there or if it's not plenty of parking over there. So that lets you know right ahead of time that you need to either get there early or find a place where you can park your vehicle, reserve, book, or actually just drive into a parking garage and park your vehicle, right? And I would say reserve parking when possible. So that's another thing. So like I said, if you know his parking is limited there, then you might want to go and reserve and book parking ahead of time, so you don't have to struggle over parking. You won't be fighting over parking, right? Right. So those are the things I would say. And then sometimes, like I said, if you know that you're in a certain area and the area is the limited of parking, you might have to walk. You might have to park down a little bit further, and you might have to walk to your destination if you don't want to pay for parking. But still, at the same time, we want to make sure that parking does not turn neighbors into enemies. Because you have people who actually stop speaking, stop talking to each other because of a parking space, because they parked in front of their driveway, because they blocked their driveway, because their family came over and blocked their driveway, or because you seen I was going for that spot and you took that parking spot, right? Let's be mindful of each other and respectful for each other and not fight over parking. So exactly, know the rules. Respect each other's space and protect your peace, because we want to have peace among the people that we live, the street that we live on. Especially if we own homes, we have to be neighbors with these people for 30 years, especially with a 30-year mortgage. So think about that. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Again, we will be here next week, even though it's Christmas Eve, 7 p.m. People probably be out there enjoying their eggnog or the coquito for Christmas. So thank you for joining us and have a blessed evening.